When I came across the Kickstarter video for Mandragora, it seemed really cool. The thing that stood out the most to me was the unique approach to character building. In most Metroidvanias, you get to pick a weapon and maybe you get to pick a spell. The only one that I can think of which really offers a lot of customization is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. Now, that's probably just because I haven't played enough Metroidvanias, so if there's any others you can think of that have really deep character customization, just put them down in the comments, I'd love to hear about them. But back on topic, I said that Mandragora looked really cool, so I reacted to the Kickstarter trailer, and I talked about some of the things that I was looking forward to in terms of the game. And then I also said that it would be awesome if I could get my hands on the game and try it for a bit. I'm very happy to report that is exactly what happened. So huge shout out to Chris from Primal Studios, I'm sorry if I got your name wrong, who reached out and gave me pre-alpha access to Mandragora to try the demo out for myself. So what are my experiences with the Mandragora demo? Well, immediately I noticed the really nice environmental effects. Even from the first fight, combat felt very methodical. You learn the enemy pattern, you dodge roll, and then you get some hits in when you know you're able to be safe. In a lot of ways, it very much reminds me of Dark Souls combat. Early on, it also felt a little clunky at random times, almost like the game was dropping frames. And I thought, well, it's pre-alpha, so that's probably not too surprising. Turns out I was just an idiot and running out of stamina. When you run out of stamina, it doesn't completely prevent you from attacking, it just slows down your attack animation, which feels pretty bad if you're constantly doing it without realizing. But once I realized what it was, I like it a lot. It leaves a lot of room to get those last couple hits in and finish off a foe that has a sliver of health, while still punishing you for doing so, and if you get too greedy, you will absolutely die for it. I also like a lot of the small touches, like the cool animation where your character turns sideways and goes through doors, kind of adding an illusion of 3D to what is otherwise kind of a 2D world. The interaction with jump points also feels really great. This is something that in a lot of games feels clunky to me, so maybe it's just that I'm bad at jumping. In this case, I wasn't really missing my jumps, I found my character was grabbing ledges no problem, and overall it felt awesome, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to love the platforming. As I progressed, I fought one of the night bosses, which isn't actually a boss, but it certainly felt like it the first time I fought him, and I promptly learned they can change direction. I thought I was being really clever by dodge rolling behind. I was not in fact being clever because he can swipe left and right. So I kind of went squish. But then after coming back and abusing the range on my flame sweep a little bit more, dodging in and out, I was able to take him down no problem. I then did some exploring and found a neat little rat mini-boss. Overall, the mini-boss wasn't too scary, but I also feel like I got lucky because I managed to ignite him, and I noticed Ignite just kind of wrecks stuff. Speaking of wrecking stuff, as I continued to explore, I met the Vampire Lord. I very much like the thematics of this fight, and slightly hate the fact that he teleports behind me, forcing me to reposition. Don't get me wrong, it's a good mechanic, but I'm supposed to be the one repositioning and going behind enemies, they're not supposed to do it back to me. Funnily enough, even though I killed the vampire without too much issue, I was then wrecked by a crossbow when I got just a little bit too greedy and had way too little health left. Lesson learned, and I mean I didn't need those souls anyway, so it was fine. Moving on, I continued through the demo where I found a huge platforming area. And again, I have to say, the jumping felt really great. You're able to duck down under things, you're able to jump from platform to platform very easily, and because you can grab the edge, you don't have to worry about being super precise, like my experience has been from a lot of other Metroidvanias. While I continued through the level, I ended up fighting a few more enemies, mostly just the halberders and knights that I'd fought before, some bats, which like to fly in the air and flap around annoyingly, plus of course a few more rats, since every abandoned castle has to have rats, right? I mean, there's a rat right over there. Oh, I'm not supposed to be telling you I'm in an abandoned castle. Never mind everything I just said. And then I encountered a boss, which was surprisingly difficult, and I promptly overestimated things and went squish. But you know who won't go squish when playing Mandragora? People who hit the like button on this video. Don't ask me how, I've been told it's an ancient fairy charm, but if you do, you will be magically protected from going squish to the boss. And if you want to see more content about Mandragora, definitely get subscribed, as I'm absolutely going to be playing this game when it releases. Or if you want to see my thoughts on some other games, including one that recently shut down by the name of Babylon's Fall, then the video in the card will link to that and you can watch it after this. Before I get back to things, a special thanks to my patrons and channel members for the continued support that help me make passion project videos like this one. you can support with the link in the description for as low as $1 a month, but a little more about that at the end. So did I end up killing that boss? And what are my thoughts on Mandragora as a whole? First off, the combat very much struck me as straight out of Dark Souls. This probably won't be for everyone, as it feels very different from the Castlevania almost arcadey feel. However, I found it to be very enjoyable. Because on top of being Dark Souls, where it's methodical and tactical, it was also surprisingly fluid. I know it might look a little bit clunky from the way the visuals convey themselves. It didn't feel very clunky to me when I was doing it. To me, clunkiness is when I want to do something in a game and the game doesn't let me. In this case, it was more of me just being cautious, moving away from things, and then re-engaging on my terms or enemies attempting to re-engage on their terms. The difficulty curve also feels quite good. One enemy may kill you the first time you encounter it. Once you learn the mechanics, it's generally not too threatening. However, groups of enemies, even things that are very easy to deal with on their own, get very scary very quickly. I also like the fact that there are a lot of small touches. Earlier, I called out that you have a turning animation where you walk through a doorway as if it was a 3D space. Similarly, there's a lot of particle effects like dust motes in the air, which are very cool. And there's been careful attention paid to the sound design, so you're not just hearing generic pot-shattering sound number 57. On top of this, the enemies look great, like they had actual fur, flesh, and muscle, which almost gave them the feeling of popping out of a page, that pseudo 3D effect. And on top of all that, the platforming felt great, and this is coming from someone who hates jumping in games because he's so bad at it. So what would I want to see from Mandragora in the future? Well, first of all, I'd love to get a chance to play around with the skill tree. The skill tree looks almost straight out of Path of Exile, and I couldn't be happier to jump in and just play around with all the different builds. But I also totally get why this wouldn't be in the early pre-alpha build. In fact, for an early pre-alpha, my personal experience was the game both ran and played excellently. Something else I'm curious about is what form is the crafting going to take? Because I got a lot of recipes and I got a lot of crafting materials, but I couldn't figure out any way to make items. I'd guess at some point I rescue or come across a blacksmith, but that's also probably content for later. Finally, I'd love to be able to use the grappling hook. I know there's a keybind for it, but I couldn't actually get it to work, so I'm guessing it wasn't in this early version of the game. And if the traversal is already good without it, I can only imagine how great it'll be with the grappling. So again, a special thanks to Primal Studios for providing me with a key to the pre-alpha. If you want to check Mandragora out for yourself, then you can wishlist the game completely for free on Steam, or you can back the game on Kickstarter. All of those links will be down below. If you want to support the channel directly, you can do so either here on YouTube or through Patreon. And you might get your name on screen just like some of the patrons here. On the other hand, if you want to join the community completely for free, maybe hang out, chat about games, then hop into the Discord and give yourself a community role by reacting to the bot. But what about you? Are you going to give Mandragora a shot? Or is this game not for you? Let me know any of your thoughts, along with Metroidvania recommendations, down in the comments below.